Something unusual is happening behind closed doors. The United States is quietly pushing Europe and Canada toward a new phase in the Ukraine war. Not more weapons, not louder warnings, but talks. Serious talks. European leaders are cautious. Canada is listening closely, and Washington is signaling that the endless war may no longer be the plan. The question is simple, but the answer is dangerous. Is America trying to end the Ukraine war, even if its closest allies are not fully ready? For most of the Ukraine war, the position of the United States was firm and public: support Ukraine, strengthen NATO, pressure Russia through sanctions, weapons, and diplomacy. That message was repeated again and again, both at home and abroad. But recently, something has shifted. American officials are no longer speaking only about victory or defeating Russia. Instead, the language has become more careful. Words like stability, long-term security, and sustainable outcomes are being used more often. This does not happen by accident. Wars do not only end on battlefields, they also end when the cost becomes too high to manage. Inside Washington, several pressures are building at the same time. Military support for Ukraine has reached levels that require serious planning. Stockpiles are not infinite. Logistics matter. Training takes time. These are not political talking points, they are practical limits. At the same time, the global situation is becoming more complex. The United States is dealing with rising tension in other regions. Resources, attention, and focus cannot be locked into one conflict forever. Public opinion also plays a role. While many Americans still support Ukraine, there is growing concern about how long the war will last and what the final goal really is. Voters want clarity. They want to know where this ends. This is where diplomacy comes back into the picture. The United States does not want a sudden or chaotic end to the war. That would be risky for Europe, for NATO, and for global markets. Instead, Washington appears to be exploring how to slow the conflict and guide it toward negotiations. That does not mean abandoning Ukraine. It means recognizing that endless war is not a strategy, it is a risk. American leadership is often misunderstood as loud or aggressive. In reality, it is often quiet and indirect. When the US starts talking to allies about peace, it usually means serious calculations are already happening. This change in tone is not weakness, it is control. The goal is to shape the outcome, not react to it. From the outside, Europe appears united. Leaders speak together. Statements are coordinated. Support for Ukraine remains official policy across the continent. But behind closed doors, the situation is far more complicated. Europe is carrying a heavy burden from this war. Energy prices surged, supply chains were disrupted, inflation hit households hard. Governments were forced to spend billions to protect their economies. While emergency measures worked in the short term, the long-term cost is still unfolding. Some European countries are more exposed than others. Those closer to the conflict feel the pressure more directly. Others worry about political instability at home. Elections across Europe are becoming more unpredictable. This creates a dilemma. On one side, ending the war too soon could look like failure. It could raise questions about security and deterrence. On the other side, continuing the war without a clear end date increases economic and political strain. Europe is not arguing about values. It is arguing about time. How long can this continue before internal pressure becomes too strong? That is why US-led discussions matter so much to European leaders. When Washington signals a possible shift, Europe listens carefully. Some leaders quietly welcome the idea of talks. Others fear the consequences of compromise. No one wants to be blamed for a weak outcome. This is the tension shaping every meeting. Europe needs American leadership, but it also needs reassurance that peace will not leave it vulnerable. That balance is fragile, and it explains why public messages remain firm, while private discussions are far more cautious. Canada does not dominate headlines in this conflict, but its role is important. As a close US ally and NATO member, Canada often plays a stabilizing role. It supports Ukraine strongly, yet avoids extreme language. That approach gives it credibility on multiple sides. In recent discussions, Canada has emphasized long-term security rather than short-term gains. This includes defense cooperation, training, and future guarantees. That focus reveals something important. Canada is thinking beyond the battlefield. It understands that even if fighting slows down, instability can remain. A frozen conflict can still be dangerous. Peace without structure can fail quickly. By supporting US-led talks, Canada is signaling readiness for a transition phase. Not surrender, not retreat, but adjustment. Canada also pays close attention to global order. A chaotic end to the war could weaken international norms that smaller countries rely on. This is why its voice matters more than many realize. Canada is not pushing for headlines, it is pushing for durability. For Ukraine, peace talks are a sensitive issue. The country has paid a heavy price. Any deal that looks forced could feel like a betrayal. Ukrainian leaders worry that fatigue among allies could pressure them into accepting terms that do not guarantee future safety. From their perspective, peace must mean security, not pause. Russia views the situation differently. Signals of peace talks can be interpreted as opportunity or weakness. That makes timing critical. If talks start too early, they can fail. If they start too late, the damage may already be done. The United States understands this risk. That is why discussions are happening quietly. Diplomacy works best when it is careful, not rushed. This conflict affects Americans more than many realize. Energy markets respond to war. Defense budgets grow. Global instability raises prices and uncertainty. Ending the war on controlled terms could reduce long-term costs. Ending it poorly could create new risks. Right now, the United States is trying to manage the most difficult task in global politics, bringing a war closer to an end without losing trust, influence, or stability. That is why Europe and Canada matter, and that is why these talks matter now. Peace is not announced with applause. It begins with pressure, silence, and difficult choices. And right now, all eyes are on Washington.